In this episode, we interview Cindy Steer, chatting to her about breathing, how mindfulness and breathing can impact your life and business.
Do you ever feel bogged down and overwhelmed with advice?
We are living in a time where good tips, tricks, and hacks have never been more abundant.
From Facebook to podcasts, mentors to 6-week courses, it seems like everywhere we look now, somebody is telling us what to avoid or how to improve.
So where do you start?
We thought we would start with taking some advice, not giving out more.
We're going to road test just a few of the world's ideas and suggestions, seeing how easy they are to put into practice. And we'll meet a few experts along the way.
This is Advice Takers and Habit Makers.
Awesome. Well, hello, Sarah, and hello, Cindy.
Hello to you both.
And hello, everyone who is watching or listening. Now, we're just going to go through a little bit of a recap of last time's episode. And then we're going to introduce the lovely Cindy. So, Sarah, we were chatting last time about habits, and we talked about forming some of our own habits, because I've been doing Miracle Morning, and it's been a little bit exciting, and I've been changing a few little times of my day, well, mainly the morning, and we've been talking about how changing one part of our day impacts the rest and it creates success and all that kind of thing. So I'm kind of a bit on that journey, but you were going to implement some breathing techniques into your morning or day as well.
Yes. Well, as I recall, I set myself a challenge to do 10 minutes of breathing, mindful breathing in the mornings. Now, I have to admit at this point, my 3-year-old usually sleeps in the same bed as me. So it's really dependent on who wakes up first as to who sets the mindset for the day, if I can put it that way. So certainly when I've woken up first, yes, I do get those 10 minutes in of breathing and clearing the mind, getting myself ready for the day. And it's, we're living in times at the moment, if I can say this, where there is a certain amount of mental toughness required. It's not a matter of, knowing in an hour that the kids will be off to school or preschool in my case. So you are setting yourself up for a bit of a longer marathon through the day, if I can say that, with little kids at home. So I think, it is more important to have that mindset ready to go and be feeling calm, to face what the day has to bring, certainly, yeah.
So did you feel that way? Did you feel calmer when you were doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I've actually, it's made a big difference, not only with the breathing, but just in terms of where I kind of set my level, mentally in the morning. So, normally my son will jump on me and I'll end up sort of being a rodeo donkey first thing in the mornings, and that can put me in a bit of a grumpy mood, let's say. But I've actually, spending this time with him has actually made me realize that all he wants to do is play. That's his thing, is play. And so if I can sort of indulge him in a bit of play early on, then he feels like he's connected to me first thing in the morning. And I don't, choosing not to let it irritate me actually makes a big difference for the rest of the day too. So I guess my point is, it's not just about the breathing, although the breathing is really a great stabilizer and a great grounder. It's more, it kind of extends to, how you frame your mindset in the morning and, what you realize your family needs from you, and not just going, about the whole thing, So, so the breathing definitely got everything started, but it forced me to look at maybe what else was contributing to my mindset in the morning as well.
Oh, that's awesome. I did read somewhere, this is just a little bit of an offside because we love those offsides. I did read somewhere that, and we can ask Cindy about this, that it is the type of breathing that you do that is important as well, because there is, of course, that breathing when you start, like that kind of thing, or you like almost hyperventilate yourself, which is like going to do the opposite of, or you probably, like, if people slowed their breathing down so much, that actually could cause a few issues, which is not what we're advocating. But yeah, I can see how it totally helps. It's not something I was focused on, because I was more focused on just following my miracle morning, because I've been doing that, like I was talking about last time. I've been doing it's usually about an hour of just kind of mindfulness stuff in the morning, including affirmation. And what else have I been doing? Visualization. Not so good at that one, but I'm okay. A bit of reading. Silence is the good one, but you've just got to make sure you don't fall back to sleep, or maybe you just get up and not do it in your bed, because that's really important. And I've been having a walk as well and doing a bit of journaling. So it's all those different things. They call it savers. So silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading. I think that's everything. Oh, and scribing. Did I put scribing in? Savers at the end. So but when I do it, and it's 30 days, and I have had like some days when I've not done so well, but when I've done it, I've felt really, really good, and then slept really well as well. So I wonder what kind of impact breathing can have on our sleep as well. That's something maybe we can, Cindy might be able to help us out with as well. But I did read, and this is just preempting as well, this is what my notes said. Breathing well, and having that kind of quiet breathing and just slowing things down is really good for mood, awareness. Something else I can't read what I've written. It helps with anxiety. It calms the brain, and it changes just the way that you feel, and it can change your life. So we will chat to Cindy about that in a second. It's good for blood flow and lower stress, and presumably it's really good for that whole if you get in the habit of doing what you were doing, Sarah, and doing your breathing in the morning when you get up, and of course we want to be doing it presumably all the time. We want to be breathing well, but it's really good for the whole fight flight mechanism that we tend to have in ourselves, that just particularly with, like you said, everything going on in the world, sometimes things are just overwhelming. So just breathing, just becoming mindful takes things back a step.
Well, it's funny you should talk about the fight and flight and anxiety loop, I suppose, because I remember reading probably a few months ago now, I was reading about a study where people had panic attacks, and they were talking about how people would say that their panic attack came out of nowhere. So it wasn't sort of triggered by, a situation in which they felt unsafe. It wasn't triggered by, anything that they could sort of put their finger on. But this was a study done with people who claimed that their panic attacks came out of nowhere. And what they realized was that people had been hyperventilating subconsciously for say up to an hour or two beforehand, and then their brain would kind of go, okay, something's not right, because you're hyperventilating even though you're not aware of it. You're obviously getting a lot of extra oxygen in your blood. Something is threatening you. Okay, we've got that fight or flight instincts kicked in, because they just weren't aware that they were hyperventilating and breathing in that top sort of half of your lungs. And I'm sure Cindy is going to enlighten us a lot more on what that's all about. But it just made me think of that study that you can definitely be hyperventilating and having a stress response and not even be aware that your body is sort of gearing up to get into that sort of preparing, I guess, that panic state, I suppose. So it's definitely
it all
interesting.
makes sense, doesn't it? It makes complete sense. But maybe we should stop talking now.
Yes.
And I'll introduce Cindy.
We'll stop being the experts when we have the expert in the room.
We have
definitely.
an expert here. So I'm going to introduce Cindy. Cindy, I have, this is just how I know Cindy. Actually, it's really funny. A friend of mine knew Cindy. Oh, I'm just going to knock everything over. Knew Cindy many years before I knew her. My neighbor, actually, this is just a little bit of an offside story. And I'd met her at my neighbor's house, but then we connected later on at a networking event, and I don't know if we both put two and two together or it just took that much longer. But I just know Cindy as someone who definitely is in the mindfulness sphere of things, runs amazing retreats, and is also into healthy eating. So that's my little take on things, but I am going to read a little bit about her as well. So Cindy is trained in mind-based stress relief and mindfulness and meditation. She loves connecting and being with people and has spent her adult life working with all types of people, mostly in the health and travel industries. She is 28 years married, with two adult children. She says, I'm very curious about life, and as such, I am always learning and evolving. In my 20s, I explored diet in relaxation, that would be awesome. In relation to health, in my 30s, fitness, and in my 40s, I discovered mindfulness and realized the power it has to link all elements of mind and body and to include a layer of basic spirituality into life. I love seeing people thrive, and this is why I coach awareness in people's private lives as well as in their professional lives. I believe we can all be leaders regardless of our position in life. It is about having a sense of inner guidance, compassion for others, and a willingness to serve. Stacey works with people to create space for them to choose how they perceive situations before responding, the ultimate opportunity to be free of personal suffering. Wow. Yes. Okay. Welcome, Cindy. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me on board, both Larissa and Sarah.
It's awesome to have you here.
And
you're
really
in your office.
I really enjoyed listening to what you both said because it's spot on. It's really interesting when it comes to breathing because it's the most underestimated thing that we do. When you think of it, we come into this life and the first thing we do is take a breath in. And when we finish our life, the last thing we do is take a breath out. And everything else in between normally just happens automatically. But if we actually focus on the breathing, we can do it even better.
Yeah, amazing.
So what I always say to people is that, like you were just saying before, Larissa, there are so many benefits in understanding breathing that can make such a difference to our health, both physically and mentally. And like you were saying, Sarah, the stress response is one of the biggest things that happens in our everyday life. And our brains are kind of geared from prehistoric times where it goes into that fight, flight, or flee sort of situation where it's like it's constantly thinking, I'm preparing for like a lion coming at me. And so when something happens, we go into a mode of self-protect. But it's a physical protection device that then affects the whole physical body. And what we're finding with that, and that's what you're talking about, the science of understanding these responses, is that the body's supposed to kind of gear up for it, realize everything's okay, release and go back down to normal mode. But a lot of us are not releasing. And so then we're living in what's called a chronic stress response for the body. And when that happens, it means you can get a bit locked in that space. So breathing is one of the quickest vehicles to break that.
Yeah, amazing. Sorry, Sarah. I'm just like,
oh, sorry. I was going to ask you, Cindy, when we do, you know, I suppose the majority of people listening to this will be mums and or people who run their own businesses, or people who, you know, certainly take on a lot of responsibility throughout the day, no matter what that looks like. How do we sort of look at a rapid reset when we are finding that, you know, the stress of the day is sort of being carried, you know, across our chest and in the top of our lungs and so on? What's the easiest way to, I guess, disengage from that and, you know, find our way back to a calm state through breathing?
That's a really awesome question, Sarah, because I think that's why I say to people I teach awareness, because the first thing you've got to have is awareness that this is what's going on. And once you're aware of it, then you can say, okay, now what can I do to break that cycle? And that's where your breathing can come in. So when I talk to people about breathing, I very much talk about how can you use it in your day? How can you use it for different applications? So what we're talking about there is what I call balanced breathing. And that's, I actually categorize, because if you talk to people, you'll find there's so many different ways of breathing. Like people will say, oh yes, have you heard of the box breathing? Have you heard of this breathing? Have you heard of that breathing? And some people could get a bit overwhelmed with, well, what am I supposed to be doing? Whereas what I always say to people is, if you can think of breathing like this, I say water breathing, whiskey breathing, coffee breathing. Water breathing any time of the day, right? Any time of the day, water breathing is what you need to be able to just bring yourself back into balance. And water breathing is about a balanced breathing. So whatever style you choose to pick, they have done a lot of study that proves that the most effective way is a 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out. And that tends to equate to counting to the count of 4 in and the count of 4 out. So you'd breathe in 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4. So that would be your most efficient balanced breathing. And that can be done. Ultimately, you need to breathe in through the nose as well. That is the most ideal. Whether you breathe in and out through the nose is up to you, but the most important thing is to try and breathe in through the nose. And the other important thing is when you actually breathe in, that you actually look to fill the lungs on the breath in and contract on the breath out, which we often do the other way around. And so that's a balanced breathing, and that's a go-to that you can use anywhere, anytime, when you start thinking things are out of whack. But the key to it is, Sarah, is recognizing. So if you've got an awareness that I'm feeling stress levels building, that's where you say, okay, I need to click into some water breathing. Or if I'm already really stressed, that's when whiskey breathing kicks in. The whiskey breathing is, as it sounds like, end of the day, relaxing kind of breathing. Now, some may call it whiskey, some may call it wine, some may call it gin, some may call it cup of tea. So whatever works for you, but the concept is that you actually breathe in to the count of 4. This is one of the examples, but if you were to breathe in to say the count of 4, then you'd actually breathe out to the count of 8. So it's a much slower breath out. Yeah. And the whole concept of that is that really slows down the heart, which brings everything back down, allows the body to flow. Because what happens when you get into the stress state is it shuts down peripheral things. And so, for example, the flow right through to the front of the brain stops. And that's where you literally can't think clearly. So when we actually slow down the heartbeat, it relaxes the muscles, the message goes to the brain that says, oh, everything's actually okay. And then the blood can flow right through, then your reasoning comes back, your logic, your empathy, all of that sort of stuff kicks back in. So that's the whiskey breathing. And then I also explain to people that sometimes, like you were talking about, Larissa, about kind of hyperventilating, that actually is a technique that sometimes can be used if you're really tired to actually pump the energy. So you actually almost want to hyperventilate in a way to actually build up the heart to give you energy in a situation like, let's say it's mid-afternoon, the kids are coming home, you haven't got time to grab a coffee and you're really exhausted, you're having a bit of a sugar crash because it's mid-afternoon, and you're thinking, how am I going to cope with the kids? I'm feeling really tired. You can actually use breathing to pump up your heartbeat and actually give you more energy.
Wow, I did not know that. So in terms of bringing in mindfulness to our breathing, say, how do we go about doing that, like adding things in? I know, I'm just thinking back to when I first had, I think it was my 4th child, and I was full on tired. And breathing was, you know, obviously really important, because I'd get myself into almost a point where I'd get into a panic, but I needed to slow down my breathing. But part of it was also about, I did do the self-talk, and also about, you know, thinking about other things and that kind of, you know, taking it out of, it wasn't just breathing, it was, you know, pulling in other strategies as well. So how do you sort of suggest to people that in terms of linking both mindfulness and breathing, you know, obviously they sit together?
Definitely. What I would suggest to people is that the breath is your leading into whatever you're going to do, right? So you use the breathing, because basically when you are focusing on your breathing, it's hard to focus on thinking. So that's the whole concept of using the breath, and it also starts the whole physiological release of the body. But then once you are able to do that, then you might choose to focus on just one thing. So often what happens, we get busy and we've got so much happening that then we start getting a bit scattered, and we add stress on top of that and we don't know what to do. So I would suggest in that situation, I say to people, just focus on one thing and one thing only, and do it whilst you're breathing. And be fully absorbed in whatever it is that you're doing. So if it's cooking, be fully absorbed in the cooking. If it's the kids, be fully absorbed in the kids and don't worry about what's happened beforehand. Don't worry about what's coming up. Just be absorbed in that moment with them. And, you know, Sarah, you were saying about your son, when he can be fully hypo in the morning, just kind of go, you know what, I'm going to give that space and let him be hypo, and I don't care. So you allow yourself that time and say, I'm just going to be in the moment. I'm just going to stay with it. And you can put a time frame on it if that helps, because it might be like, I just can't do this, you know, ongoing. I've got things to do. But wrap it around a time frame, and then allow yourself that space to just literally be there. And that helps as well.
Yep, good advice. Very good.
Yeah, awesome. Just talking to you, you've got this kind of lull to your voice. You're very calming. It's almost like you're trying to, you know, put us into a meditation. Or
I do feel very calm from this conversation.
Really zen just talking to Cindy. Okay, so Cindy, tell us, you work with people one-on-one. You also work with businesses. Any examples of any that have, you don't have to tell us names, but any examples of anyone who has, you know, really, you know, benefited from doing this kind of work with you? Or, you know, can you flesh out a little bit for us?
I can actually give you an example of someone just recently who I've been working on, a fairly young tradie, and he works with one of the companies that we do business with, and he's one of those go people, you know. He fits everything into the day. He's super efficient, super fast, but he never stops. And even when he gets home, he's go. And he's looking to move into more of a management role. And part of that means having the energy, and the patience as well, to be able to deal with the rest of the team. And so I've been just doing a few sessions one-on-one with him, which are mostly via Zoom anyway, but with this current environment. But what he was saying is that up until speaking to me, he never thought about actually having time in the day that he did nothing. He had every minute of every day squashed in with everything that he could think of. And what I'm getting him to do is actually insert some space into his day. And I caught up with him just last week and said, how are you going? Because he's actually implementing 10 minutes a day of meditation, where he does a meditation that focuses also on the breathing. And he's never ever tried meditation prior to this. And he said to me, Cindy, it's amazing. I can't believe how much of a difference it makes, as far as I just feel like I've got more clarity about what's going on in my day. And he said, it's like, I can't pinpoint it exactly, but my girlfriend says I'm not coming home and sitting down and grabbing a beer. I'm much more calm, much more collected. And he said, I'm actually even going to talk to my dad because he's like an older version of me. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, that's
wow,
awesome.
that's really good.
Yeah, and
I think, sorry to
that's
talk
okay.
over you there, Larissa.
This is what happens with Zoom.
I was going to say, I think, you know, I do think this whole busyness thing is definitely crept up into our lives and taken over. You know, I just listening to you tell that story, Cindy, it's, you know, it makes me aware that we do feel that, you know, unless we're busy or we've got stuff to do, or you know, we should be always concentrating on, you know, the next thing that we need to do, or trying to be more efficient, as opposed to just letting that stress cycle reset. And so, you know, our bodies and our minds are able to take on the stress that, you know, perhaps the rest of the day is going to bring. Which obviously leads to burnout, as we know, if you can't sort of recover from that you know, that stress response. But yeah, I think we all just, you know, just listening to you talking about doing nothing, it just seems so important when you describe it, that we're not just constantly preoccupied with this expectation or need to be busy all the time, and there is value in doing nothing.
And I'll tell you one other thing, Sarah, when it comes to it, is that so many people that I talk to say, I tried meditation, but my mind is way too busy for that. And I always say to them, that means you need it, because it's not about there's a lot of mixed messages out there, and a lot of people think that it's about quietening the mind. That can happen, but it's not actually about that. It's about seeing how busy the mind is. And it's really about becoming an observer, where you're not judging, you're just watching. And it's almost like, you know, if you sit and watch the clouds pass over and think of them as all the different thoughts, and you kind of observe and you go, wow, no wonder I'm feeling like the way I am, because I've just got so much going on. And just literally by doing that sometimes is enough to give you a bit of space to think, well, how do I approach my day? So afterwards, you might be able to get out and journal or write down a note and, you know, actually plan things.
That's so good. So much for us to take away from this discussion, think about. And for anyone who is listening in, or you're watching us on YouTube, actually you can check out Cindy's studio where she's working from as well, but we'll pop some details of how you can connect with Cindy in there. But maybe anyone who's listening, it's a good chance for us to just get mindful, just take some time in the day to just stop, think, reflect. Maybe it isn't quietening our minds. I do like that concept, but maybe it is just, you know, stopping for a bit and just sitting down and letting things kind of roll off us a little bit as well. But I'm so happy that you chatted with us today, Cindy. And yeah, it's just been amazing to just hear from you, and like I feel like lulled into this like nice, calm,
I do too.
Kind of like, I don't know how I'm going to go off and deal with kids now, but you know, that's life. Maybe this has been my little bit of time just to become a bit mindful and reflect on things as well. So thank you so much for joining us, Sarah. I'm going to ask you now, and we'll ask Cindy if she'll join in our next challenge. Our next challenge is going to be...
Our next challenge is going to be learning something fun that has nothing to do with anything you currently know or do. So we're just going to take a big step into the unknown and go away and learn how to do something or become knowledgeable in something that's just learning for fun. You know, we take learning way too seriously these days, and I think, you know, there's something in just learning about something for the hell of it, you know, just becoming knowledgeable in something that you can amuse people with at a dinner party in the future perhaps, but just, you know, just the enjoyment of learning again. I think too often that's really lost to us, and you know, that's going to be our next challenge, to go away and find something that's just going to be a bit of a brain tickle, I suppose.
Awesome. So Cindy, I hope you'll join us for our next challenge. I wonder what you will take on as something that you'll learn. Anyway, something for us. Maybe we can let everyone know what you've done for this challenge in our next episode. And I need to, I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I need to let people know as well I can't say it, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you aren't already, so you can get updates on what's coming up, like amazing people that we chat to, like the lovely Cindy. I'm going to pop her details down in the show notes. And as well, check out when our next podcast is coming up, and you can find more information on our podcast on our Women with Altitude page. And we've also got a page that we've set up, so watch this space because it's going to be awesome. But I'm going to say bye for now, and thank you so much, Cindy, for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your time this evening.
We'll look forward to seeing
Thank you both.
us all. You can see us all being beautifully mindful and zen, because we've taken on all these breathing techniques. I'm not going with the whiskey one or the coffee one. I'll go with the was it tea? Was that the first one? I might go with
water. That was the swimming breathing. Oh, the water breathing.
See, I've got
I think of it as swimming breathing. That's how I'm going to remember it.
Any time of the day. Yeah.
We'll be super zen. Thank you so much. We think you're amazing.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much for having me. One thing I'd suggest in there, girls, is if you're talking about just simple things too, is one thing at a time. Like, try not to multitask, because as much as us mums tend to think we can, we're not supposed to. So do one thing.
Spoken like the expert that you are. Thank you so much. Take care, girls.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you next time.